In just 10 minutes, uncover 10 powerful takeaways from Sarah Longwell's talk with political journalist Ian Ward on the Bulwark Focus Group podcast. They discuss J.D. Vance's rise, the new right's bold agenda, MAGA's future, and why Vance might replace Trump, ignore courts, and end liberal America as we know it. Takeaway 1. J.D. Vance sees himself as a builder. J.D. Vance is not just playing the role of vice president. He sees himself as someone who can lead America into a new political era. He does not only want to be Trump's loyal second in command, he has a deeper goal of becoming the next leader of the conservative movement. Ian Ward shared that when he asked Vance who he looks up to politically, Vance did not name a typical American figure like Abraham Lincoln. Instead, he said Charles de Gaulle, the former French president. That was revealing. Vance admires how de Gaulle held cultural conservative views and kept France somewhat independent in the world order after World War II. He wants to be seen not just as Trump's shadow, but as someone who can build a long-lasting political majority, maybe even one that covers 70% of the American public. This kind of thinking shows Vance is not just interested in power. He is thinking about legacy. For example, in an earlier interview, Vance told Ian Ward he was studying post-war France and how de Gaulle kept France from falling apart while keeping cultural traditions alive. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2. Vance is trying to balance authenticity. One of the biggest challenges Vance faces is how people view him. Many voters feel that he is not authentic. This is especially true for people who first saw him as a Trump critic and then watched him switch sides to become Trump's biggest fan. Some voters called him a flip-flopper and a wolf in sheep's clothing. But for people who knew about his life story before he entered politics, like those who read his book Hillbilly Elegy or watched the Netflix movie based on it, they feel they understand him better. These people see him as someone who came from tough circumstances and rose through hard work. That gives him some credibility. However, it's still clear that his sudden political shift rubs many people the wrong way. For example, some voters in the podcast remembered him saying in the past, "I will never be a Trump supporter," and they now find it hard to trust him because of that. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3, the new right wants to replace liberalism. The political movement J.D. Vance is part of, called the New Right, believes that liberalism is finished. They think the ideas of freedom, democracy, and equality, which have guided America and much of the West since the Enlightenment, are falling apart. The New Right does not just want to change policies, they want a whole new system. Some thinkers in this space, like Curtis Yarvin, say democracy has already become a fake version of itself. They think America is really run by hidden elites and that a strong leader like a king or CEO should take over instead. Vance has not openly said he agrees with all of this, but he often reads and references these thinkers, which suggests they influence him. For example, Curtis Yarvin promotes the idea of a national CEO who should run the country like a tech company. This is not a joke. He thinks someone like Tim Cook from Apple would be a better model for government than any elected official. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4. Vance uses power to challenge democracy. Vance does not just have strong opinions. He supports actions that go against some of the basic rules of American democracy. One major example is his belief that the president should ignore court orders. Back in 2021, he said Trump should just ignore the courts. When asked about this later, he explained it by saying that the real constitutional crisis is when judges stop the president from doing what he wants. Vance argues that if the courts try to limit the president's power, then the president should just do what he wants anyway. This kind of thinking is dangerous because it breaks the idea that laws and judges are above politics. It shows a deeper push from the New Right to end the traditional checks and balances in the U.S. For example, when the Supreme Court blocked some Trump-era actions, Vance said the president should not obey them, claiming the judiciary had stolen the executive branch's power. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5, the New Right wants cultural power too. It is not just about laws and policies. The New Right, including Vance, wants to take over American culture. They believe that conservative victories in politics are not enough if liberal ideas still control schools, media, and Hollywood. That is why they talk about taking control of places like universities, the Kennedy Center, and even Netflix. Vance and others think that real power must include cultural power. This idea is not new, but it has become a lot more serious in the last few years. For example, during the podcast, they joked about how the movie Hillbilly Elegy went back on Netflix when Vance became vice president, and people were shocked that the guy in the movie was now in the White House. Takeaway 6. Focus groups see Vance as awkward. Many focus group participants describe Vance as awkward, inauthentic, and too eager to follow Trump. Even voters who once supported Trump are skeptical of Vance. They said things like, "He's Trump's little yes man, and he's creepy." Others remembered how he changed his views once he got picked as vice president. They see him as someone who just wants power and is willing to say anything to get it. This view hurts him, especially with voters who want leaders to have their own opinions. Even when he gave strong debate performances or made good speeches, people said their opinion of him dropped after he got into office. For example, a voter recalled that after Vance's UN speech, they thought he seemed promising, but his behavior later made him seem like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. Some voters like his intelligence and story. Not all voters dislike Vance. In fact, some voters who switched from Biden to Trump in 2024 spoke positively about him. They liked his life story, the fact that he is a millennial, and how articulate he is in debates. These voters said he seemed grounded and relatable. They appreciated that he did not come from a wealthy political family, but rather from poverty and had worked hard to get where he is. Some said he reminded them of someone who had struggled like they did. His calm tone and thoughtful answers also stood out to these voters, especially compared to Trump's chaotic energy. For example, one voter said that watching Vance in a town hall helped them decide to vote for Trump because Vance came across as genuine and professional. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. The Trump team uses Vance carefully. J.D. Vance is being used in a very specific way by the Trump administration. Instead of sending him to rallies to fire up crowds like Trump used to do with Mike Pence, they are sending Vance to places like the Munich Security Conference and Silicon Valley think tanks. That is because he speaks well to elite audiences and can explain Trump's ideas in a more polished and professional way. This helps make the administration look more serious and less chaotic. His role is more about selling policies to high-level people than firing up the base. For example, when venture capitalists at the A16Z conference needed to hear why Trump's second-term policies would be good for business, it was Vance they sent to deliver the message. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. Vance is deeply online and meme-aware. Vance spends a lot of time online, especially on Twitter. He is not just reading news, he is fighting with critics, posting memes, and engaging in internet debates. That makes him very different from most politicians. It also makes him part of meme culture, where jokes and online posts help shape how people see public figures. Vance knows this, and sometimes leans into it. He once joked online about breaking a college football trophy, and he made a joke about going to a football game instead of attending a big White House event. This shows he wants to be seen as relatable and internet savvy, even if it also makes him a target for weird memes. For example, when people started joking that he had a sexual relationship with a couch, instead of ignoring it, he just moved on and let the internet burn out the joke. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. The real challenge is selling his vision. Vance is one of the few politicians in the MAGA world with a clear vision of what he wants to do. He is not just reacting to news or trying to win the next news cycle. He is laying out a plan for what he thinks America should be. But that could also be his biggest problem. Trump succeeded not because of a deep political theory, but because he was entertaining, simple, and made people feel like he could shake things up. Vance, by contrast, has an ideological project. He wants to remake American politics and culture. That kind of intellectual message might be too much for everyday voters. Many just want jobs, safety, and to feel proud of their country again. For example, Vance often explains complicated ideas about post-liberalism, but most voters still ask, what does he actually do? Or, why should I care? Here is a brief introduction about Ian Ward. Ian Ward is a political reporter at Politico Magazine, focusing on the conservative movement and the American right. Before joining Politico full-time in 2022, he contributed to publications like Vox and the Portland Press Herald. A graduate of Bowdoin College, he is based in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support this channel, hit the thanks button below. It really helps us keep going. If you enjoyed this summary, please leave a like and share it in your WhatsApp groups. To join discussion about this video, drop a comment below. And for more videos like this, hit the subscribe button below.